Yes. Welcome to the Fulfillment Project. I'm Andy Leonard and my Substack, and this podcast is all about exploring what it truly means and how to live a fulfilled life. If you get something out of the podcast, give it a thumb up, a 5-star, and share it with someone who can get something out of it. And if I missed something, and I'm sure I did, leave a note in the comments. Let me know about it. For those who want to go even further, consider joining the Fulfillment Project Premium. You'll get access to all the study guides for each article, longer podcasts where I bring guests on to discuss the nuances of each topic, and so much more. All right, let's get started. Today we've got my best friend Eric Larson with us. Eric, what's up, man?
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Oh, so where are you calling in from today, Eric?
So my wife and I were based in Lone Tree, Colorado, which is like 30 minutes, 40 minutes south of Denver, depending on the traffic.
I love it. So Eric and I met in college. He was a philosophy student, and he helped me unpack all the deep, meaningful stuff in life. Why do we exist? I'll never forget the 1,000 espressos we shared, Eric, while you blew my freaking mind. I was discovering caffeine and philosophy all at the same time. But
We're both, brother.
when I was thinking about this finance topic, you were one of the first people I wrote to, because more than like a dividend and truly financing, it's really the heart of the question of like, what's the freedom? How do we get to financial freedom? How do we feel that way? So I'm just curious, you and your wife, your beautiful wife, Shannon, I was at your wedding. I wore golden pants. I'm still embarrassed about that to this day. But how has financial independence, financial freedom impacted you guys in your individual and married lives?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's been a really awesome journey since being married to Shannon. I would say when I was single and left to my own devices, the years where I was making decent money, or more money than I had ever made in the past, it's all relative. I quickly went through that money, and I never really learned like basic financial literacy and or even established financial goals for myself. So it was really kind of a free-for-all and not very productive. And I did always feel stressed about money. Even when I would get a windfall, because I'm in software sales, it always felt very fleeting, even before it fleeted. Because I was like, all of a sudden it was gone. And I was like, I did a bunch of stuff with friends and whatever, but didn't really have anything to show for it. But Shannon was the complete opposite of me in that regard of like, she grew up in a house where, budgeting and tithing and just like sound financial principles and investing were just kind of a part of how she was raised, and it was something that they talked about. And so when we got in a relationship, we quickly established a budget. We started tithing. And what blew my mind too is when we met, like my income was this and her income was here, but her wealth was significantly greater than mine, just because of that, the fact of she had a healthy relationship with money and I had a very unhealthy, immature relationship with money.
Yeah, something I hit on in the article, and I wanted to expand on it more, it could almost be its own article, is living below your means. Would you say you guys live below your means, and how was that to make that? It sounds like Shannon was living below her means. You were living at your means, maybe above, I don't know. What was that transition like? What was the reality like?
Yeah, and I would say it's really around prioritization. And are you prioritizing impulsive spending over saving or giving? Because for us, it's all about like 100% of the money that we have coming in. It gets allocated, every dollar as a job, so to speak, So, I mean, when the money comes in, or if we're investing stuff pre-tax or whatever. But when money comes in, we immediately tithe, X amount. We immediately put money into savings. We immediately look at investments. And then what's left over is our budget. And then an interesting thing that we do, which is we actually work with a financial coach too on a monthly basis. No, on a quarterly basis now. So it's just like for transparency, we meet with them. This is where we were, this is where we're at. And so it keeps us on track too. But one of the things he had us do, because my income is so variable, is we set up something called a drip account. And so a lot of my variable comp that comes in, we put in this drip account, and it gets allocated towards our monthly budget, or at least a portion of that variable comp, whatever doesn't get invested, essentially goes in there. And then we can use it to supplement my just base salary. So essentially, we know our monthly expenses are X amount. Everything above that, has a job. So yeah, I don't know. I don't
I
know if
love.
that answered your question, but that's,
Well, if I was listening to this, I feel like it would make me think, how intentional am I about my actual paycheck? Because you're on a variable comp situation. I'm similar. Some people just have a salary, some people are hourly. The bottom line is we all have income coming in one way or another. Have we given the right time and effort to thinking about how are we managing this and how are we getting to a point where we can live below our means? Not everyone is, some people have to spend everything just to break even, but a lot of people
yeah,
don't. And so
yeah,
if you don't, then what are you doing? And if you're not intentional about it, it's like time, like it disappears,
yeah,
if you don't focus on it. So that's my biggest takeaway about what you said. I want to pivot to more of the philosophical thoughts. So in the article, I talk about the real questions behind how much do you make. And I pointed out 4 things: happiness, security, success, and comparison. And I've had a lot of talks with people since posting it. And one thing I feel like I should have clarified is the income you make doesn't tell anybody anything about the first 3 things. We can compare our numbers against each other, but if I know your number, it doesn't tell me anything about your happiness, security, or success. I just infer things that may or may not be true. What do you think? Am I right? Am I wrong? Where am I at on that concept? What do you think?
yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. I mean, again, I look back at, like, if I compared myself to Shannon, like when we met, my income was more than hers, but she had a level of like peace and security around her finances because she always learned how to live within her means, or under her means, like you're saying, and being able to save and invest and do all the things that we should be doing with our money. And so our relationships with money were the opposite, and I was making more. So I think definitely having the raw material of a greater income is an awesome opportunity to grow in financial freedom or independence, or however you want to phrase it. But without those, I think when you don't have a lot of money is the best time to be implementing those things, because as your income grows, or as you look for opportunities to grow your wealth, like that's the only way to actually grow in wealth and freedom and independence, is if you're doing those things first. It's like, how many times do we hear about people who win the lottery and then the money is gone,
Yeah.
so yeah, just having the cash, that's one piece of the equation, but it's honestly not even the most important piece of the equation.
That's such a good point. When I just drew the correlation to when I coach new salespeople on my team or mentor other new salespeople, I say, build the foundation of your business. So once your business grows, you have somewhere to put all those things. Like you don't have any sales today, but like, what's your thank you note? How do you process invoices?
Yeah.
How do you follow up on renewals to reduce churn? And like all these systems you put in place, it's helpful to do that before your business gets humming. Because once your business gets humming, you're so busy, like bringing in new sales, trying to reduce the churn, keeping customers happy, keeping your employees happy. And same with money. I never thought of it like that, but like it's the earlier you can start this, the better, because you can have those systems in place and you just build your lifestyle slower. It's so easy for lifestyle to match income and go a little beyond because debt is so easy to get a hold of.
Yeah.
But if you build, like you're saying, the money comes in, first fruits to the Lord, tithe, second fruits to yourself, pay yourself first, Robert Kiyosaki,
Yeah.
and then the rest gets budgeted out to the other people to pay your
Yeah.
bills, you know? And if you can set that up first as the money grows, you can adjust those things as time goes, but it's like at least you have a solid system in place.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say like the deadly thing for me was like comparing myself to others. Like it always seemed like I couldn't live within my means because in my mind there was a certain lifestyle I was deserved or was like meant to be living, and it was always greater than my income. And so I think like the biggest mindset shift is I think that level of humility and a lot of things that are tied into other things other than finance, like how much is your ego at play in your financial decision making? Because, yeah, I think it just kind of it bleeds into all things, whether it's finances or otherwise. So, like, I think that was one of the biggest things I saw with Shannon, my wife, is like she found a way to live within her means and to save and to build wealth, even with what she was earning, even though I had a much or not a, a larger income, that seemed impossible to me. But it was because of the way that I thought yeah, it was a lifestyle decision in it. So I think when you don't quote unquote aren't making the amount of money that you want to make, the solution to wealth and freedom isn't making more money. It's oftentimes first, like you said, that foundational layer of how do I implement these things, but also how do I take a hard look at myself and say, do I need to get a smaller, cheaper apartment? Do I need to live with people? Where can I save money? And it kind of goes to like this idea of like mind your own business and like not in a selfish way, but in a sense of like not being worried about what other people think about you or comparing yourself to others. Just mind what you're trying to achieve in life and make that your focus. And if it means I'm going to downsize, I don't care how this looks, but it's like we're going to do the things that are actually going to make us successful in the areas that we want to be successful.
Eric, you hit on two things there. One is the net worth statement is such a unique thing that kind of changed my outlook on success because like you can make a ton of money, but if you don't have a lot of assets, then or a lot of net worth, assets minus liabilities, then you really don't have much, you know? And so that's the first thing is like if I'm looking at monetary success, it would be some sort of ratio of net worth divided by income. Like, what's my net worth divided by my income? And that would be like a hard material way. How successful am I? Because you make $500,000, but if you have $100,000 in net worth, you're not doing very well at all. If you have
Yeah.
$10 million in net worth, you're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
The piece that I care about more, I think, although both are important, is peace. Like, I think I heard you say Shannon had more peace than you, even though her raw materials of money in was less than you.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
100%. Yeah. She just like, and she sees this like in my mind, like, I just have such an anxious relationship with money because of my past, and it's actually gotten a lot better. So it's even gets to the point where I'm like, even as your liquidity continues to increase, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I didn't even have an emergency fund to like, hey, you could go unemployed for a while and you'd be okay. But there's still the stress of like not having enough, because I lived with that for so long that just kind of nothing ever kind of feels like enough. That may be other issues, but with her, she this maturity of like, she has like she's in control of her money just habitually.
Yeah.
And so that alleviates the stress of like, she knows the right things to do with it, and she's always had enough because of the way that she behaves with money. And so there is a certain freedom to that has nothing to do with how much you make. And it has everything to do with, are you controlling your money or is your money controlling you?
Yeah. And I think I even use those exact words, which are pithy and many people say them, but it's so true. Who's controlling who? And it goes back to how much peace do you want to feel in your life? And to me, that is the litmus test. Like,
Yeah.
dollars mean nothing. You're going to die one day, and maybe you have a lot in the bank left over, and you can give to your children, to foundations, to charity in a beautiful way. And I certainly hope to. But it's like, but it's all going to go away. How am I living today? And I want to have a peaceful heart. When I wake up, I want to be at peace. I don't want to be sweating for material things. How do you find peace? I think it's different for everyone. I think it's different for everyone. Because for me, I mean, risk threshold is so different from person to person. So how much risk can I feel peace with? What type of lifestyle do I want? But then you said earlier, it's not even, maybe you do want a certain lifestyle, but you need to sacrifice that lifestyle so you can attain that peace. And to me, the ultimate goal is peace over outward appearance of wealth.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I often find that like real wealth is actually um the opposite of the appearance of wealth, where it's actually funny, like a fun story, and I actually like to tell other coworkers and stuff about this, but like once Shannon was in my life, I actually like closed the biggest deal of my life, like times 10, it was just exponentially greater. And people were like, so like, what's like the first thing you're gonna like do with it, right? And I was like, the day after I closed it, I literally went and sold my BMW and bought an old used Subaru that has like, there's no maintenance, like has like no repair costs at all. And it's like, so I literally downgraded my car, like cut it in half in value. And it's like, in 100% of all this is going into purchasing a house.
Yes.
So that was just kind of like a funny thing, because it's like normally someone goes out and buys like the sports car.
Yeah.
For me, and like, so I'm still driving this like manual Subaru approaching 200,000 miles. And like, for me, I'm like, it's perfectly fine and there's no issues. Like, we could get a different car, but I would rather invest or pay down the house or do other things with that money. That my car isn't a priority. So, yeah. So I think like that's what's really changed with me, was like, before I thought I needed to have like, and it's funny how like oftentimes when you don't have money, that's when the urge to like, the outward urge to like, oh, I need to have this appearance of money. So it's actually kind of a very vicious cycle. where I think when people actually start to save and accrue wealth, that all of a sudden when you actually have it, you don't really care about the appearance of it as much. So, because you're actually reaping the real fruits of it, and you're like, hey, I have this peace and stability in my life, and I don't need to compensate in these other ways, which is actually kind of eroding any potential you have at, getting to the place you want to be.
Yeah, that ties in. The quote I ended my article with was from Seneca, and it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. And I feel so much what you said when you experience what I think I heard you say was once you experience that peace and those things that are greater in value than money, you recognize internally those are more valuable than this
Yeah.
outward appearance, the watch, the car, the whatever, the house. And so those are the things now automatically you place a priority on in your life and you reorder your life until you taste that. You may not even think about it because you've never known, like, you never been to the ocean. You don't know you like looking at it. You know, if you've never had peace in your, and there was a long period of time in my life where I didn't experience peace. Like it was a brand new thing to me when I felt peace of heart. And I wonder how many people are like me that have never felt it even to this day or understand what that means. Like you hear words, maybe you think you know, but like when you feel it, you know it. And once I felt peace in my life, that automatically became the number one thing, the litmus test by which all decisions were measured. Will this bring me peace or not?
Yeah.
Because nothing is worth giving that up.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like you either have to have a taste of it or like there is a sense of like, I think you feel the absence of something even if you don't know what it is. Um, and I think if you hit a certain rock bottom of like, okay, something has to change, like I can't keep living like this or whatever it is, that can sometimes lead people to change their habits, whether it's financial or otherwise. But um yeah, I think, yeah, having that, I mean, and then once you taste it, yeah, you're like, oh man, I just want more of this because it's so much better than, you know, living for appearances or whatever it was, because it's the more authentic. No, yeah. So I don't know how related it is, but it just kind of comes to mind like another thing that I talk a lot about with my coworkers and stuff is just how intertwined Shannon and I manage our finances. Like I always say, joke, like she's our CFO, because
Yeah.
and all my coworkers are like, no way, like separate finance. She does what she wants with her money. I do what I want with mine. And I'm like, that's great. But for me, like, I need that. Like, there's freedom for me in that freedom and peace, and knowing that, A, I think it's a reflection of kind of our idea of what our marriage should be. Like, I want her to be able to, like, see everything I'm spending my money on, but also just from a purely financial standpoint, I know that I make better decisions with money when I know that Shannon and I are going to look at it at the end of the month. And so even if it's perfectly innocent purchase and just like something I want, like the impulsive spending is just like goes away because it's like, hey, we didn't talk about this. What is
Yeah.
it? But and we budget for like, hey, here's your fun money, whatever, spending on the thing that you want, and we're talking about like, I would like to get this thing, and so I don't know. It's just I think it's a really has been a really beautiful thing for our relationship and definitely for our financial health.
I could totally see how it matters. Transparency, accountability, sharing finances with the person you're sharing life with seems like a really good move. It seems like a really, really good move. Talk to me Talk to me about suffering. Is there anything I touch on suffering in my article? Like, suffering's not optional to maintain financial peace. It kind of felt like it was a little out of left field. I was like, should I take that out of there? But I was like,
Oh,
in my personal lived experience, suffering is a big part of it. But like, you never know if that's everyone's lived experience, you know? Pellegrino, nice move, dude.
yeah. Well, I drained my water bottle over here, so decided to level it up a little bit. Well, and I think when you initially asked me about this topic, I think that's where I kind of differentiate, like, freedom isn't license to just indulge. Like, financial freedom isn't the same thing as just financial license and just spending your money on whatever you want. And like, they're actually kind of opposed to each other. So I think to have freedom and to have peace requires sacrifice. You can't just, you know, react or just, yeah, indulge in everything that you want. So, um, but I would say, and it's just like everything, like it's like being an athlete and working out. Like, it's not sacrifice for the sake of sacrifice or the sacrifice to, I know it's not like a masochistic exercise, but it's like there's an objective and an aim in sight, and it's ultimately making you stronger and more disciplined and helping you achieve a level of health in whatever aspect it is, whether it's financial or otherwise. So I think just as, as humans, whether it's mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, or spiritually, like everything requires sacrifice in order to grow and to achieve health in those areas. So I think if you aren't there's no resistance in your natural tendencies in any of those areas, um unless you have incredibly strong good habits already in place, which required a lot of earlier sacrifice. Like, you're not going to be living very healthy. So yeah, so I think sacrifice is intrinsic to freedom and peace financially.
Intrinsic. Okay, last question. We're coming up to the 30-minute mark, and that feels like long enough. Have you ever told anyone your income? What was the result? I take a hard stance in my article that I do not share my income with anyone. I shared it with one person once, and things got a little funny. Now, of course, like my CPA, I've got some advisors. I don't consider those people because it is a little awkward initially when you're getting the relationship set up, but after a while, it's just like, okay, there's people in my life I share with. Outside of that, I don't share. Have you ever done it, and what's your stance on it?
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously, like, I had done it when I was like immature, and what's funny is, like, typically the people who are volunteering their income are making less than the people who are there actually. Like, I think I was like trying to be a big shot, and then more than likely this guy's like, I make that in a week, whatever. But no, I think, yeah, not anymore. I think as you just grow and realize, like, hey, I don't really want that at like the center of my relationships with people. And I think it is, I think you can have the meaningful, like this kind of thing. Like, you can have meaningful discussions with people around finances and like have close friendships where you can be supportive of each other in their own financial goals without you having to say, like, I made this much or whatever. So yeah, no, I would say that's definitely something I would recommend steering away from.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I used to have a rule where if I thought the person made more than me, or I was convinced they made more than me, I would share openly because there are certain things, strategy, whatever, it feels
Yeah.
good to talk to somebody who's accumulated more than you. And like sometimes like talking XYZ. And I've kind of evolved that position to not sharing because unless, again, it's with an advisor or something, because those aren't the things I'm actually interested in. What I'm mostly interested in life, even with highly successful people, is, okay, how are you that successful, that involved in your business and charitable works and boards, and be a dad? Like, how do you do that and love your wife? How do you vacation? How do you save? Like, I love hearing the way you guys order when money comes in. Here's your what's your process for saving and investing? What's your charitable giving strategy? Like, I like now talking about things, and you don't always or even ever need the number to talk about those things. Sometimes you do, and with those people you do, but like, I feel like you can get to such more depth when you're talking about real substantial things. Like, what's the heart of the matter here? It's not the number, it's the thing behind the number we're talking about.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to remember, like, what someone makes in a given moment is a moment in time. And like, wealth is something that is accrued over a long period of time, and like consistency. And so, like, I think a lot of it is like, especially like in sales and stuff, like a lot of my interest isn't like, hey, how much did you make? It's how did you have 20 years in this career where you were consistent enough to sustain that and just grow professionally or whatever it is. So that, because that's ultimately going to set you on a trajectory of greater wealth versus like, just hey, this person makes this much in this industry. Well, if you're changing industries every year, you're not going to be successful long term. And so I think it's about finding something you're, good at or passionate about. And then how do you, begin to accrue wealth over many years? And like you said, it's not that number that ultimately dictates that.
Eric, you hit the nail on the head. This has been so good. I actually feel like we could go a lot longer, but let's cap it here. You get the last word. Anything you would have liked to say that you didn't get to say?
No, I probably said more than I would have liked to have said. So, so I appreciate you challenging me to do this. And it was really, just fun to chat and hang out. And guess the one thing I didn't say is I love you. So it's great to chat and catch up.
Eric, I love you too, brother. All right, that's all for today. See you guys later.